So we have talked about class attributes. Now let's talk about class methods. As the name suggests, class methods are methods that belong to the class itself and not to an instance, not to an object that the class made. They do not have access to the instance attributes, so they kind of work on general class attributes. They can be called through the class itself and do not require the creation of a class. So you can call a class method without there being a single instance of that class, without there being a single object of that class. When you're creating them, the first parameter is class itself, CLS, and they're always preceded by the @class method identifier. So here's how they compare with instance methods. Instance methods are bound to the instance, so only instance can use that method, and that method can only affect sort of instance attributes in that instance. Class methods are bound to the class. Instant methods can only be called through the instance. Class methods can be called through both the instance and the class. Instance methods take self as the first argument. So when you're writing the class, your instance methods are going to be, if you're changing attributes, it'll be self.attribute. And the class methods take class, CLS, as the first attribute. Instance methods have both access to instance and class attributes, whereas class methods have only access to class attributes. So let's have a look at an example of a class method. We're going to apply this to the web browser program, which we've looked at in both slides and the code. Here's a sort of upgraded version. So you're basically creating a browser object. This is the attributes. So you've got history, current page, incognito state. So these are the instance methods. Navigate, basically, you enter a new page that's set to a current page. If not incognito, the history is appended. You can also clear history, but up to the current page, so the current page is always going to remain in the history. So that limitation, you can delete the history, but the current page is always there, is something that this class method is going to overcome. So this is the class method. It's called def with incognito. So this right here is essentially making an instance of the object. So CLS, it's like going web browser, boom, putting the page in there. So what that does is create a web browser object, but then sets manually the attribute is incognito to true, basically overrides history to make it a blank, and then returns it. So when you create a brand new web browser object, you would say web browser dot with incognito, then you'd enter the page. Now, if you have any doubts about this, don't worry, we're about to tackle this in code in more detail right now. In this video, we are going to be continuing learning with the web browser class. Now, it has these two methods, navigate and clear history. And first thing that I want to do is test them out and show you how they work. After that, we're going to create a class method that actually makes incognito browsers. So let's start with navigate. Now, I want to, as soon as they're created, I want to print out the state of these two browsers. So we can basically print chrome.bit, and we can do the same with Mozilla. So when I run this, you're going to basically see that we have history, there it is, we have a current page, we have an incognito state. So let's see how things change as we navigate. Chrome.navigate, maybe dictionary. You can see how we print Chrome first. You'll notice the history has these two. Current page is now dictionary.com, no longer google.com, and his incognito is false. So we're just going to navigate once more for the fun of it. Chrome.navigate, ab.com. I don't know what that is. I really should have put a real website. But nonetheless, now you see these three things in the history. Now, let's check out the clear history method. Chrome.clear history. this will be interesting. Aha! So when you clear history, there still is a history. You're clearing everything other than your current page. Your current page is still the current page. So this statement right here, basically the up to -1, all that means is clear everything, turn everything to blank other than the current item in the list, other than the sort of first item in your history. So our history clearing is somewhat limited, and that's pretty much the way it works in browsers. They're always aware of what their current page is. Even if you clear history, that current page is still going to be there. And it also works exactly the same way in the real world, whether you're using Chrome or Mozilla, and you've probably used one or the other. When you go into incognito mode, it's like opening a brand new browser, creating a new browser object. And that's what our class method with incognito is going to do. So the way we start a class method is we go into the same indent as these other methods, and we type in @class method. And you'll see there's a special yellow font. You'll know you typed it correctly because it's going to look different. And then we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call this one with incognito. And it's going to take CLS as first parameter and then page. So the with incognito browser is still going to need a page because you're browsing web pages, right? So we start off by creating an instance of the incognito browser. So we can basically do something like this. Instance equals the class. So it's basically like saying web browser with page. Next, we can set the instance to incognito instance dot is incognito is true. Then we can basically set history to a blank. Overriding this, not up to 1, we can basically say instance dot history is a blank list. And finally, we return the instance. So remember when we created those sort of manual person and car objects and added attributes to them? That's precisely what we're doing here. So we create a web browser object, we override the incognito to true, we override a history to a blank, and then we just return that object that we've created. So the way you use this class method is you create a brand new browser, and perhaps instead of creating Chrome here, right, we've navigated to all of these pages, we could have just done it there. Web browser, and all we need to do here is add the function name, web browser. So Chrome is web browser dot with incognito. So now when we run this, it's going to print Chrome first. You will notice something. The Chrome history is a blank. There is no history. There is a current page, but there is no history. So no matter how many pages you browse to, there is never going to be any history because that's how the incognito mode works. It's basically the instance history is hardwired to blank. All right, so I think that covers both these two methods, navigate and clear history, and the class method with incognito and its purpose.